There
This
is,
conference will now be recorded.
let's go back and do that. So we want to record that we've called the meeting to order at 5:01 p.m. of the City of Kingston Ethics Board. And all sitting members of the board, I believe, are present. I'm Alan Nason. I'm here.
Jackie
Dana
DeCicco, I'm
Blackman.
here.
Present.
Mike Decker, present.
All right. So Mike, Dana, Jackie, and myself are all here. We have what could be a large agenda today. So we should probably start with the reading of the previous meeting minutes.
Yes,
Has
you have
everyone?
those? They were online.
I reviewed
Right.
the minutes and I make a motion, we accept the minutes as posted.
Is there a second? We have a motion to accept the minutes as written. Is that without any corrections or discussion?
Yes.
And is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All right. So let's go unanimous on this, Jackie.
Okay. Oh, yes, I approve it.
And I approve also. So we will unanimously accept the minutes. I had something here. We have something here on the update on financial disclosure statements. And one of the main function of the ethics boards is the annual review of the financial disclosures. And we had started a review of them and were unable to complete them. We had gone through the ones that were in conformance, I believe, and then it's been a while, but Jackie, the ones that weren't in conformance, they were sent back.
Yes, they were sent back. We received all of the ones that needed to be corrected or updated were returned. We have 4 that need to be reviewed by other board members other than just me. And we have 8 outstanding that we have not received one form yet.
Okay. Can we send another message to the outstanding ones?
Yes.
In this strange, COVID time, something may have happened, and ask them to send them in within a short time frame.
Okay.
Whether
I
that's
also
10 days. I'm sorry, Mike.
Can I also request that we copy their supervisor or their chairman of their board, their position that they're on?
Yes.
And so how many do we have, including those 8 that we need to review?
4.
4
So-
other ones?
12 altogether.
12 altogether.
Yep.
So is there a way that we can review those 12? I know that you can review them, Jackie. Is there a way that at least one other board member could review them in the next few weeks?
I
Sure.
could easily stop to City Hall during the week, next week and do so.
Yeah, City Hall is open between the hours of 10 and 2, and they're here in my office. Does that work for you at all, or I can always make arrangements to be here in the evening?
Yes, I can make it work. Preferably something around 4 would be better, but I could make that work.
I can do that.
And I could also stop in the daytime if that's becomes an issue. Well, see, that was easier than I thought it might be. So thank you for your work on that. We have some old business to discuss, some complaints. 219-2020 and 219-20202. So the first one was -1, the last one was -2. We had a -3 that was resolved at the last meeting without finding. Do we have corporation counsel in our meeting?
I see Dan's on.
Is Dan on?
Yes, Dan is here.
Hi, Dan. Um, so, Dan, there's a couple of questions that I have in terms of discussing complaints that we're continuing to review, and we would, I believe, need to be in an executive session for that to discuss the complaints that are specific to individuals who are employees or officials. And it would help if there were a legal counsel available in that session. Is that a possibility that could be arranged?
It all depends on the circumstances and the individuals involved under the language of the ethics code as adopted by the Common Council. Our office represents the council unless we believe and state that we have a conflict pursuant to the Code of Professional Responsibility, or alternatively, that the ethics board believes that we have a conflict, in which case, in either case, the nature of that conflict needs to be outlined in writing, okay? That writing would then be evaluated and a decision would be made whether outside counsel would be appropriate. If a decision is made that outside counsel is appropriate, there is supposed to be, under the legislation, a $10,000 allocation for the ethics committee. I'm not sure if that allocation was ever made by the council, whether the money has actually been put in a line, but the code specifically says that it's supposed to be. And then if you need to retain outside counsel, that outside counsel has to be retained by a formal written retainer agreement that would have to be approved by the mayor, or if the investigation relates to the mayor, the code would require the alderman at large to approve the retainer. I would assume, given the issues that we're talking about, that no one anticipated that there possibly could be a conflict with both of them, and that the decision would have to be made by a third unidentified person.
Hi, Dan, before you go on, I've had a request that whenever anyone speaks, we say our name first because the people on the phone can't see us.
Dan Gartenstein speaking.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
So,
Again, the first step would be presenting the facts and circumstances to a representative from our office. We would then evaluate whether under the code we have a conflict. Okay, and if we do not believe we have a conflict, the board can still articulate what they believe is a conflict. But
okay.
given that I don't know what the circumstances are or what the complaints at issue are, I can't speculate at this point.
Okay, so in terms of reviewing the existing complaints,
Alan, say your name.
Alan Nace.
Good job, Alan.
Thanks. I remembered it. I have it written down here somewhere. So we're pretty much limited in the guidance we're able to get to go into executive session at this time and discuss the complaints because of a possible conflict, or is that something that we would do and you would be able to advise us within the executive session?
What I would suggest would be that you can go into executive session, And if the board believes that an issue of a conflict exists, the board can authorize Alan to make a request in writing to us that would remain confidential, but there would be a written record regarding what the alleged conflict would be, and we would respond to that in writing.
Okay. And you said something about needing to know the particulars of the complaints.
In order to ascertain whether or not there is an actual conflict, we would need to know specifics, yeah.
Is that something that we would explain to you in the executive session?
No, it's something you would explain to us in the written document that you forward to us, asking us for an official position on whether we have a conflict.
Okay. So if we as a board generate a document, a letter to you that's accompanied by the complaints, and in a letter that we send, we outline what our concerns are or may be, and how that may or may not constitute a conflict.
Correct, but what I would suggest is that the initial communication to us does not need to include the actual complaint. And if we believe on the face of the request, we need to recuse ourselves, then we don't need to request a complaint. If we need more information, we can certainly request it and it can be provided.
Okay. And what's the turnaround time for that?
All depends on how complicated the issue is. I really can't speculate. Quickly, and as quickly as possible.
So if we, in the next few days, get you that letter, you could advise us, and we had a meeting for a week from now, you would be able to have an answer by then.
I don't see why not.
Okay.
And then the way it would proceed from there, if in fact you need outside counsel, we would recommend that some sort of shared services agreement be entered into with a municipal attorney in a similar community. So
we could use Poughkeepsie, or
what's that?
we could use like I'm assuming the Corporation Council for Poughkeepsie if they were willing.
Poughkeepsie, Newburgh, Beacon, any other similar municipality that deals with similar issues. We could potentially contact them and secure their representation for you in exchange for the understanding that in a similar circumstance, we would be willing to work for them.
Okay.
Basically the equivalent of a conflict counsel arrangement that is already in existence with the Dutchess County Public Defender's Office and the Ulster County Public Defender's Office.
Okay. So if the existing ethics board goes into an executive session tonight, we can discuss the case. And if we determine that we need outside counsel, if we determine that we need counsel in that session, including your office, we can let you know that, and then you'll decide if that's a conflict.
Correct.
Okay.
And if you read the ethics code, there's a specific provision related to employees who are bound by their own code of professional responsibility.
On top of the code.
Correct. Yes. And what our code of ethics indicates is that when you're dealing with a professional who has their own code, that is the ethical the ethical standard that they have to apply.
That's the minimum.
Correct. Well, that is the controlling. It's not the minimum. It's what's controlling. And
I think
it's not your attorney. I'm sure when you go into executive session, there are certain parts of this that Dana can explain to you. Correct, Dana?
Correct.
Yes.
Alrighty. There's a couple of things that I wanted to read in and announce in the public meeting. One is that there had been some concerns while this investigation is going on about my participating in two other boards in Parks and Recreation and DPW. And while I did seek legal counsel and I was advised that since those are advisory positions, it's not a conflict. However, in order to avoid a perception of a conflict, I have stepped away from any activities or decision making on those commissions, at least until this is resolved. And the rules say that I have to make that announcement at a public meeting, and that's why I'm choosing to do it here, because I can't go in public to a public meeting or in person. The other thing is that it appeared that there was some recent confusion about the ethics board. And board members, if I miss something or speak incorrectly, please let me know and correct it. But the ethics board is required to meet 2 times a year. And the most recent code and guidelines were revised by the Common Council. I believe it was in December 2017. Is that accurate? Is that the date you have?
I don't know what it is, sorry. This is Jackie. I will look. Sounds about right, but I'm not seeing the date on this.
Okay.
It does sound about right.
Okay. So
That's correct.
the ethics board is required to meet 2 times a year, and there was some of the public had, I think, assumed that it was monthly and questioned whether the minutes were there or not, but there wouldn't be monthly minutes. The ethics board would meet a minimum of 2 times a year, and then as needed. And when we have these cases, it increases that need, and we meet as often as required to meet that need. Now, we were delayed a bit by COVID and not knowing what to do, and I think these issues are important enough to meet in person. However, we don't want to let that lay there forever and not meet, so we're doing the virtual meetings at this time. The other thing was about quorums, and the ethics board consists of 5 members. Right now, there's 1 vacant seat. One of the members has moved out of the area, and one of the requirements of the ethics board involvement is that they live in the city of Kingston. And so when they moved out of the city of Kingston, they took themselves off of the ethics board. But for, I believe, every meeting, I know for every meeting we've had a quorum, and I can't recall a meeting where we only had 3, which would constitute a quorum. I think we have 4 pretty much every time.
Alan, this is Jackie. There was one meeting. I think Mike Decker and I were the only ones that showed up. I can't remember the date of that, but we did not have, we had a quorum, right, Mike?
We did not have a quorum.
You did not
We
if
didn't
there
have a
were
meeting
2.
as such.
Yeah.
So there was one meeting with no.
I think it was confusion with the date of the meeting.
All right. So a correction on that there was one time when there was presumably confusion with the dates of a meeting, and Dana and I didn't show up. But for every other actual meeting, there has been a quorum, and getting a quorum has not been an issue in general.
And that was very early on our appointment.
Oh, was it? So we're talking a couple of years? Okay.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
in the early days. So in this complete year, that has not occurred. As I said, our last meeting was pre-COVID, and we had discussed some of the complaints. There was a series of 3. One of them was resolved without finding. That was -3. And the existing ones are -1 and -2. So for tonight, and I'm not sure exactly how to accomplish this. If we are to discuss any of the complaints, we would need to go into an executive session to discuss the employee number. We'll name it number 2020-01, and to discuss complaints -1 and -2. Is that something that the board wants to go into tonight?
I think we
So
should. I
this-
think we should need to get these addressed and resolved and
Okay.
So the reason that we would be going into executive session is because it's personnel matters?
We would have to go in because they are personnel matters. The complaints involve employees or officials of the city of Kingston, and that's where we've identified 2020-01 as an employee and it's an unidentified employee in the public forum, and in the private we will discuss the specifics.
A motion to go into executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular individual.
Correct.
Are you making that motion there? Or
No, I'm clarifying
That's
what
the clarification. That's the clarification of the reason to
that's
go
the
into
language
executive
that you
session.
are supposed to use.
Correct.
so is there a motion to go into executive session to discuss the complaints
No, the
involving
employment history of a particular
the
individual.
employment history of a particular individual?
So moved.
Who said that?
Mike Decker.
Okay.
Is there a second, a third?
I'll second. Dana Blackman.
Jackie DeSico, all third.
All right,
Go.
and I'll make it unanimous. So
And I
the
assume you don't need me when you get back.
I wouldn't assume anything. We always
Well,
need
Jackie
you.
has my cell phone. I have 2 other
Okay.
meetings that I have to Zoom into.
Okay.
Okay, if you need me, I can be reached on my cell.
All right. Well, thank you, Dan. I appreciate your
Thank you. Take
guidance.
care. Good night, all.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
All right. So how do we, in this virtual format, how do we go into
Okay,
executive
so,
session?
Call that
this-
conference phone number, correct?
yep, this is Jackie. All the board members have to turn off your cameras, mute your computers, and then you have to call the conference number that was emailed to you.
This conference will now be recorded.
The City of Kingston Ethics Board has been in an executive session interviewing and discussing existing complaints. 219-2020-1 and 219-2020-2 concerning primarily a specific individual who's identified as 2020-01. The two separate complaints we will discuss. The first one is a complaint that's identified by 219-2020-1, and the board will vote on that. As the chair and facilitator, I will not vote unless there's a tie. Is there a vote on 219-2020-1?
What are we voting?
Are you voting that there is a finding of an ethical violation connected to that, or that there is no ethical violation connected to that, that there's nothing to substantiate it?
Jackie DeSico, I'm voting that there is no ethical
No
violation.
ethical violation for 219-2020-1, but from Jackie. Dana?
Dana Blackman, I'm voting that there is no ethical violation on this complaint.
Michael?
Mike Decker, I'm voting that there is no ethical violation on 219-2020-1.
So the complaint listed as 219-2020-1 is found to not have substantiated an ethical violation, and a notice of that will be supplied to the complainant and to the person who the complaints were about. The next order of business is in another complaint, and it's listed as 219-2020-2. And are there suggestions or recommendations from the board members in terms of a vote on that, or to seek legal advice for the board and for our guidance in making a determination?
I believe there was discussion of voting, but after further discussion, it would be my vote that we send a letter to the Common Council advising
Corporation.
them that Corporation Council advising them that we believe that they have a conflict with regards to providing us with legal advice with respect to this complaint, and that we obtain outside counsel prior to rendering a vote.
Mr. Decker?
Mike Decker, I concur with that proposal.
Jackie?
Jackie DeSico, I agree.
So the decision of the ethics board is that for 219-2020-2 and any connected issues, that before proceeding, the board would like the advisement of legal counsel, and the thought is that it may be in conflict. It may create a conflict for Corporation Counsel, who is our legal representation, and and that if we think there is a conflict, since we think there is a conflict, we will request outside counsel. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And that letter, Jackie, you can get that letter to them, to Corporation Counsel tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay. And it is our hope that we will meet on the 29th, 1 week from today, and have the benefit of that counsel at that time. And so that we can further explore these complaints and do our best to render a fair and accurate decision. Is there any other business before the board that we need to discuss tonight or prior to our next meeting? Or anything that anyone wants to bring up? You're muted. You're muted, Mike.
I don't have anything else.
Okay.
Nothing further.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, Alan, do we need to address the complaint that we decided? I think, and there was a question of whether or not it was actually sent out.
Right. Yeah, I believe that is 219-2020-2 or -3. I'm sorry, not 2. And in that, it was a specific allegation against for an ethical violation on the part of an employee for operating outside their scope of service or their job description. And we investigated, we interviewed the management staff associated with it, and it was we found that there was no ethical violation, that there were minimal cost to the city, and they went to a training that provided the city with a needed service, and in a very effective way, and they were volunteering for it, and the department heads approved it, and there were no extensive cost other than the travel time and the hours to attend the training. And the benefit is that we have 2 individuals that are trained to provide that service in the city of Kingston, and so there is no ethical violation associated with that. Any new business that we need to discuss, or?
Just the clarification as to the makeup of the board. If we want to make a statement as to who's appointed to the board by whom and what the status is with the vacancy on the board and who will be filling that vacancy.
As we talked at the beginning of this meeting, there are 5 seats on the board of ethics. The guidelines for it were established in, I believe it was December 2017, by the Common Council. And the makeup of the board of 5 people, 1 seat is now empty because Mr. DeBello has moved out of the area and vacated that seat. And it is our understanding that the mayor will request from the Common Council an appointment to fill that seat. The rest of the board, or the entirety of the board, I believe, and correct me if I'm incorrect, Jackie, that 3 of the individuals, and then we're saying this because it was a statement that the mayor has appointed, all the members of the ethics board. But I believe that 3 of the 5 are appointed by Common Council, and
Yes, correct.
2 are by the mayor. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And that we've, other than one time in the early phase of the board, which was probably, I don't know, 16, 17, whenever it was, that there was a mix up in meeting dates and there were only 2 people, not 3. But in every meeting since that initial meeting or one of the initial meetings, there's been a quorum at each and every meeting. We're required to meet twice a year. We meet much more often than that. But that's why if someone is looking for monthly minutes, there won't be. There will only be minutes when we actually meet. And that's what I have. So
Also, Alan, Jackie again, I'd like to mention that our minutes, when they're posted on the website, they're actually on the Board of Ethics webpage. They're not going to be found where the city maintains all the meeting minutes. They're actually on our own website or on page.
So people can go to the Board of Ethics website and click on the date, and the minutes will come up. And they'll be draft minutes until they are approved at the next meeting. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I want to thank all of you for, an extended time tonight. I know everybody's busy. And also all of our callers for participating. I really appreciate that. Shows that everybody's concerned about the activities in the city, and I think that's important. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make the motion, Dana Blackman.
The second?
Jackie DeSico, I'll make a second.
And you're in favor too, Mike? You're good to go?
I'm in favor, yes.
All right. So it is 7:36, and the City of Kingston Board of Ethics meeting is hereby adjourned.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you.
29th, right on.